For thousands of years, the galaxy feared only one name: the Koroth Predators. They were not just warriors, they were monsters in armor. They had sharp jaws, burning red eyes, and armor made from the bones of their enemies. They flew across space in ships shaped like fangs, and when they arrived, planets trembled. The Koroth didn't care about peace or trade or talks. They cared about one thing: the thrill of the hunt. They didn't conquer planets to rule, they destroyed them for fun. And when they left, nothing remained but ashes and silence. On planet Vexus 9, they hunted a civilization called the Rollins. The Rollins begged for peace. They offered gold, water, and even their strongest soldiers. But the Koroth laughed, tore their world apart, and used their leader's head as a trophy in the galactic halls. The message was clear: if the Koroth came, run. No army could stop them, no shield could hold them. They even burned the sky cities of the Anthari, a race once thought immortal, it was said. If the Koroth can bleed, it is only because they enjoy the taste. So, who would dare challenge them? Who would face these beasts? Far away, on the edge of the galaxy, there was one small planet the Koroth ignored: Earth. To them, Earth was too quiet, too simple, too far from real power. The humans were not part of the Galactic Council. They were not rich, not strong. And so, the Koroth marked Earth as unworthy, a stone not worth turning. But Earth had a secret. It had been watching for hundreds of years. Earth's satellites picked up signals, messages, and screams from faraway stars. The leaders of Earth knew the galaxy was dangerous, even if the galaxy ignored them. So, in silence, Earth built something. Not big ships or super lasers, but something darker, something hidden underneath old mountains, deep inside oceans and floating in black zones of space. They built Project Beast Unmask. Earth's smartest minds and strongest fighters were trained in secret. These were not normal soldiers. They were part human, part something else, blended with genes of Earth's deadliest animals: wolves, lions, hawks, and even deep-sea predators. Their minds were trained not only for battle, but for patience, for silence. The world never knew. The people lived normal lives, thinking aliens were only in movies. But in hidden bases, the beasts slept in cryo chambers, waiting for a signal that one day Earth would need monsters of its own. And then, the day came. The Koroth, tired of their usual hunts, looked toward Earth. It's not because they saw danger, but because they saw weakness. A new Koroth prince wanted to prove himself by destroying a new world. So, their fleet moved in, 20 warships, shaped like daggers. Flying silently toward Earth's orbit, they didn't send a warning. They just arrived, ready to hunt. But as they crossed into Earth's solar system, they noticed something strange. No defense signals, no panic. No shields, only silence. The Koroth laughed. Thinking Earth was already defeated, they sent small scout ships to scan the planet and capture test subjects, but none of the scouts returned. Confused, they sent a larger ship, fully armed. It hovered above Earth's dark side, searching for life. Suddenly, the ship shook, lights dimmed, and a cold voice echoed in their comes. "You hunted the stars." The voice said, "Now the stars hunt you." The Koroth tried to trace the signal, but it came from everywhere and nowhere. Then, their ship broke apart, not from outside fire, but from inside. Claws tore through steel. Shadows moved through walls, and no camera caught what happened. The last thing recorded was a pair of glowing eyes, not human, not machine, but something in between. The Koroth fleet paused. For the first time in centuries, they felt something new: confusion. The galaxy had always been theirs. Planets had always been weak, but now something was different. Something had changed. From Earth's moonbase, a signal was sent, a message not for help, but for awakening. "Unmask the beasts," it said. And beneath the ice in Antarctica, the first cryo chamber opened with a hiss. Inside was not a man, not a machine, but something worse: a soldier with lion DNA, eyes like fire, and armor made of nanosteel. He opened his eyes, stood tall, and growled one word: "Hunt." The galaxy was about to learn a lesson it had forgotten. Earth was not a stone, it was a cage, and now the beasts inside it were free. Deep below the mountains of Siberia, inside a frozen bunker, long forgotten by the public, red lights began to glow. Dust fell from the ceiling as the systems came. Alive, hissing, clicking, waking, the air turned cold, then warm. As the cryo chambers started to hum on the screens, one message blinked again and again. Unmask the beasts. Colonel Tarek stood in front of the first chamber, his hands shaking just slightly. He was an old soldier, a man who had lived through black ops, failed wars, and false peace, but nothing he had ever seen could prepare him for this. "Activate Subject Goliath," he whispered, and the chamber hissed open. Inside stood something that looked like a man but was not. He was over 7 feet tall, muscles like iron, veins glowing faintly blue. His face was calm but brutal, jaw sharp like a blade and eyes glowing amber. On his skin were faint lines, not tattoos, but animal patterns. He opened his eyes slowly, looked at Tarek and spoke in a deep, slow voice. "Target." Tarek hesitated, then nodded Korath. He said, "They've entered orbit." Goliath stepped out, his bare feet echoing against the steel floor. He didn't ask questions. He didn't panic, he only nodded. Then he turned to the wall, pressed his hand against it, and it opened to reveal his gear. Not a gun, not a helmet, but a living armor, one that bonded to his skin like liquid metal. In 5 minutes, Goliath was gone, not through doors, but through a hidden shaft that launched him upward, fast and silent. As he shot through layers of earth and broke through the atmosphere, the system around him whispered, "Target locked Predator ship, orbital path 33A." From space, the Korath ship watched Earth's silence with confusion. There were no battleships, no missiles, no warnings, only strange heat signals coming from underground zones. Then suddenly, something moved, a blur. Fast and deadly, the ship's sensors tried to track it, but failed. The thing hit them from below. Punching through the hole like it was paper, soldiers screamed, alarms rang. But they never even saw what hit them, only flashes of something. Glowing, breathing, hunting, inside the ship. Korath warriors grabbed their weapons, but their pride made them slow, their fear made them loud. Goliath moved through them like a storm, slamming, tearing, throwing. His hands were claws, his feet like thunder, and his armor drank their blood like rain. One warrior, a Korath general, tried to speak. "We are the apex," he growled. "We fear nothing." Goliath stared at him and said, "Then you're not ready," then crushed his chest with a single blow. Back on Earth, more bunkers were waking up. Project Beast Unmasked was never one weapon. It was 12. Each chamber held a different kind of monster. Some were built from eagle DNA, some from wolves, sharks, and even insects. One chamber opened in the Mariana Trench. A female soldier named Seraph emerged, her skin smooth like water, eyes glowing sea green. She could breathe underwater, swim faster than any ship, and control ocean currents with her suit. Her mission: protect Earth's oceans from incoming scouts. Another chamber opened in the African rift. Out came Ma, short and wide, but with arms like stone and the strength of 10 men. He was the ground beast, a living tank, made to fight entire battalions. He smiled as he cracked his neck, saying, "Finally." Fun. Each beast had been trained for this day, not just in body, but in mind. They had been taught to feel no fear, to show no weakness, and to fight not for glory but survival. Their goal was not war, it was protection, because Earth had made a promise to itself. If the monsters of the galaxy ever came, if they ever knocked on Earth's door, Earth would not send a diplomat, not a leader, not even an army. It would send something worse, the mirror of those monsters. The Korath never expected it. They had crushed galaxies, broken empires, burned peace into ash, but this time, they didn't face fear, they faced hunger. The hunger of beasts trained in silence. They faced humans who had turned themselves into the very thing they feared in space. Wreckage floated from the first destroyed ship. Korath voices screamed into the void, demanding answers, calling for reinforcements. But back on Earth, The second wave was already ready. The beasts didn't wait, they didn't sleep, didn't hope for peace. They moved with one mission: end the hunt. And the Korath, who once called themselves gods, were about to learn how it felt to be prey. Commander Vexor of the Korath stood inside his warship's control chamber, staring at the chaos on his screen. His best scout ship had vanished. No distress signal, no battle report, just silence. Another ship exploded without warning, its pieces now floating in Earth's orbit like space junk. And the worst part, they didn't even know what hit them, Vexor growled, his sharp teeth grinding together. This is a trick, he snapped, a bluff from a dying world, but deep inside, he wasn't so sure. Predators like him were born to smell fear, and something about Earth didn't smell right. He ordered a new scout team, 3 elite warriors, handpicked the strongest of their class. Each one armed with plasma blades, gravity hammers, and armor that had never failed. They launched in silent pods, slicing through Earth's atmosphere like knives through cloth. Their mission was simple: land, kill, return. But the second they touched the ground, the forest swallowed them. Trees moved, air twisted, and a sound, like thunder wrapped in a growl, echoed through the valley. The Korath warriors activated their scanners but saw nothing. No heat, no movement, just silence. Thick and unnatural, one of them laughed. These humans hide like prey. The laughter didn't last long. A shadow dropped from the trees, grabbed the first warrior, and vanished before the others could blink. The second tried to swing his blade, but something coiled around his arm. A tail, strong and sharp. He screamed, but it was cut short. Only the third warrior remained, trembling, his breath shaky. He didn't run. He didn't fight. He just dropped to his knees. A voice whispered in his ear, low and cold, "Go back. Tell them what you saw." He was found hours later, shaking inside his pod, eyes wide with terror, back on the warship. Vexor questioned him, but the warrior spoke only one word again and again: beasts. He whispered, "Not men. Not machines. Beasts." The ship fell silent, and fear began to spread through the crew like poison. Still, Vexor refused to retreat. "We are the Korath," he roared. "We do not run from shadows." He ordered a full-scale descent. All ships to enter low orbit and prepare for a land assault. If Earth wanted war, it would get one. But Earth didn't wait. Goliath had returned from orbit, blood on his hands and fire in his eyes. Seraph had claimed the sea. No Korath ship could touch Earth's oceans without vanishing. And now, Earth prepared to respond, not defend, high above. In Earth's secret orbital base station Umbra, a team of humans watched the Predator fleet. They didn't panic. They smiled. "Let them come," one of the generals said. "They're walking into the lion's mouth." The order was given: activate Phase 2. The ground new beasts were launched, each one different. Some tall and slow like mountains, others fast and sharp like wind. One of them, called Echo, could move through sound. Appearing where no one expected, another called Fang fought with instincts so strong. He didn't need orders, just direction. As the Predator fleet approached, the sky changed. Not from weapons, but from howls. The beasts didn't hide this. Time they announced themselves, their voices cracked clouds, shook buildings, made birds flee, and then the first Korath ship entered low orbit. Its shields were strong, its guns powerful. But it didn't see the trap. Seraph sent a current from the oceans, not water, but magnetized steam. It wrapped around the ship, fried its sensors, and left it blind in the dark. Then Maw struck from a mountain range below. He leapt. Yes, leapt. Over 200 meters into the air. His fist slammed into the ship's belly, breaking through armor like glass. The ship fell like a wounded animal, crashing into a frozen tundra. Korath soldiers spilled out, dazed but ready. Then came Fang, moving so fast. Their weapons couldn't track him. He tore through them with claws sharper than blades. And before the last soldier fell, he whispered something they didn't understand for Earth. Vexor watched from orbit, rage in his eyes. "This is not a war," he shouted. "This is an ambush." But deep down he knew the truth. He had made the mistake. He had poked the wrong planet. Earth was not weak. Earth was not quiet. Earth had simply been waiting, and now that it had unmasked its beasts, there was no going back. The first contact was over, and the first mistake had been made by the predators. They came to hunt humans, but now they were being hunted, and in the stars above, the rest of the galaxy began to watch, because if Earth could defeat the Korath, what else was it hiding? The galaxy had always known war. It had seen empires rise and fall, planets burn, and stars collapse. But nothing had ever prepared it for what was now being broadcast across hundreds of systems. The Korath were losing not to an empire, not to a superweep, but to Earth. And not even Earth's army, but to something worse. Two living monsters that looked human, but moved like nightmares. The videos leaked by unknown sources showed glimpses, claws tearing through steel, eyes glowing in smoke, ships falling. Without a single warning shot, and always before the strike, a whisper that sent chills through every translator system, beasts unmasked. Inside Earth's hidden command center known only as Hollow Core, General Arya stood before the Global War Council. The room was silent as she showed the latest footage, the destruction of 3 Predator landing ships in under 7 minutes. Each taken down by a single beast. No help, no backup. She turned to the council and said, "The time has come too. Stop hiding," the room murmured, unsure. "We've kept the beast's secret for decades." One elder said, "If we reveal them now, the galaxy may unite against us." Arya shook her head. "They already fear us," she replied. "It's time to let them see why." With that, she gave the order. "Unmask all units. Let the galaxy know what happens when you try to hunt Earth." Within hours, signals were sent across space. Not words, not warnings, but images. Live feeds, raw and terrifying footage of Goliath standing atop a broken Predator walker. His fists glowing red, a clip of Seraph rising from the ocean, water spiraling around her like a living storm. There was even a short video of Ma, sitting on a crushed Korath tank, laughing as he cleaned blood from his knuckles. He looked into the camera and said, "You call yourselves Apex Predators? We haven't even started yet." The message was clear. Earth wasn't just defending itself. Earth was showing who they had become in the silence of the past 100 years. Not victims, not survivors, but hunters of hunters. Back on the Korath, flagship Commander Vexer smashed his claws against the wall. He had never lost a battle in his life, and now he couldn't even see the enemy clearly. They moved too fast, struck too hard, was frightening they knew everything about. Korath tactics, where did they learn? He demanded, but no one could answer. And when he saw the beast broadcasts, something inside him cracked. It wasn't just war, it was revenge, because Earth had studied the Korath for decades. They gathered data, captured signals, translated old war cries, learned how Predator ships turned, fired, and landed. They trained beasts not to overpower them, but to outthink them, to become what Korath feared most, something smarter than them. One of Vexer's commanders whispered, "They made monsters." Vexer stared at the screen and said, "No." They became them. Meanwhile, on Earth, beast units were moving across the globe, each assigned 2 different Predator landing zones. In the deserts, a new beast named Sable moved like wind. Blending with heat and sand, he would let enemies chase him, then disappear and strike from behind, never making a sound, in the icy poles. A female beast named Frost hunted silently. She didn't roar, didn't speak, only stalked. Her eyes saw heat through walls, and her breath could freeze steel. Korath soldiers who stepped onto the ice vanished. No bodies, no blood, just frost-covered weapons left behind. The beasts weren't just powerful, they were many. And the more they revealed themselves, the more the galaxy realized a hard truth. Earth had not been weak, it had been waiting. Even the Galactic Council, who had ignored Earth for centuries, now held emergency meetings. Ambassadors shouted, "Why didn't we stop Earth when we had the chance?" But one old alien whispered, "Because we never saw them as dangerous," till it was too late. As more Korath forces landed, more beasts answered. The world was now a battlefield, but it wasn't Earth in danger, it was the invaders. Goliath led a strike into the Korath orbital factory, punching through its shields with a plasma-charged leap. Sarah flooded an entire base using redirected ocean tides, drowning hundreds in minutes, and for the first time in history, the Korath retreated, not to regroup, but to survive. They left wreckage behind, bodies, broken weapons, and their pride, the predators who once ruled with fear, now ran with it. In the final moments of the broadcast, General Arya spoke directly to the galaxy. She stood in front of Earth's flag. The shadows of beasts behind her, her voice was calm but carried power. "We didn't want war," she said, "but we will end it." And with those words, the last video feed went dark. The galaxy held its breath because Earth had just unmasked its beasts, and there was no turning back. High above the burning stars of Sector Ixoron, deep within the armored moons of Korath Prime, the Predator High Council gathered for the first time in over 500 years. 12 of the oldest, most dangerous Korath leaders stood in a circle, their armor thick with scars, their eyes filled with rage and disbelief. Screens surrounded them, flashing the same nightmare over and over. Human beasts tearing through Predator forces, ships crashing, cities falling. A name kept echoing. Through the halls of power, a name they had once mocked, Earth. Supreme Fanglord Rodic slammed his clawed fist onto the meeting table. "This is impossible," he snarled. They were weak. "A forgotten dirt world. They were patient," whispered Shadow Seer Milson, his voice dry as dust. "While we hunted others, they studied us." The room grew cold. It wasn't just defeat they were feeling. It was something far worse, fear for the first time. The predators were becoming the prey. And they didn't know how to fight an enemy they couldn't even see coming. A young general stepped forward. Eyes wide, voice shaking, "My lord, Earth has activated 12 beast units. They move like shadows, strike with precision." Hissed Rotek, "How does a backwater planet predict the Korath way?" An older council member, Warlord Skrin, leaned forward. "Because," he growled. They prepared. He played a recording on the central screen. It was a Korath warrior screaming, "It knew my next move." Like it was one of us. Gasps filled the room. Beasts weren't just enemies. They were reflections. Some moved like Korath, fought like Korath, even used modified predator weapons. "They studied us," said Milson. "Then they became what we feared." Arguments erupted in the chamber. "Send the Dread Fleet," shouted one. "No." "Call back the Scorch Battalion," yelled another. But Skren raised a claw, and silence followed. "Listen to me," he said, his voice heavy. "We are not fighting a planet. We are fighting a species that trained in silence, in darkness, without mercy. We destroyed their cities," he continued. "No, they had no cities, only traps. We crushed their armies." He sneered. "They sent no armies, only monsters with human hearts." At that moment, a new broadcast began on the center screen. It showed the ruins of a Korath landing site on planet Ultara, once thought secure. Now, it was silent, cold, broken, and in the middle of the wreckage stood a single human beast. His eyes glowed orange, his breath visible in the frozen air. He spoke just one sentence, and the entire chamber froze. "Tell your gods, the beasts are awake now, and they're hunting." The broadcast ended. But the silence in the chamber remained. The youngest member of the council, Lady Zarthek, whispered, "They have learned what makes us fear. They have turned our pride into their weapon." Some argued for retreat, others for total destruction of Earth. Fire the Void Lance, crack the planet's crust, end the species entirely. But Milson warned, "Even if we destroy the world, what if some beasts escape? They think like us." "They are like us," he said, "and we never stop when we survive." Panic began to bloom beneath the surface of every word. These were the leaders of an empire that had never known defeat. Now, they were planning how to escape, not how to win. The room darkened, and a new presence appeared. The ancient AI overseer of Korath records. Its voice echoed cold and mechanical, based on current battle data, it said. "Victory probability against Earth's beast program is 18%. "Silence. Repeat that," Rodic demanded. 18% chance of victory. The AI responded, 82% chance of extinctional failure. Fear exploded into shouting. One counselor ripped off his armor in frustration, another slammed his head against the wall. The empire built on fear had just met something far worse, something that feared nothing. Then came the final report, delivered in a trembling voice by a communications officer. Transmission from a captured Korath soldier on Earth. He survived the Maw encounter. Play it, ordered Zarthek. The voice was weak, cracked, barely alive. They don't kill quick, the soldier whispered. They watch, they learn. They smile. I saw one walk through fire. Laugh as his arm healed. I told him I was Predator, he said. So was he. The recording ended and no one spoke. The Korath were not only being defeated, they were being studied. They were being used as training tools, test cases, like Earth had waited all this time just to perfect the hunt, finally. Milzen stood and spoke the words none ever expected to hear. We must stop this war, he said, or it will stop us. We are facing not humans, but evolution's answer to our cruelty. They are the ghosts of our victims. Given form and fury, and so, the High Council, once proud rulers of the stars, began talks of surrender. It's not to beg for mercy, but to survive long enough to understand what Earth had become. Because when the beasts were unmasked, the galaxy saw not a planet rising, but a new kind of predator, and now the fear belonged to them. The skies above Earth had changed. They were no longer dark with Korath warships, no longer filled with the sounds of incoming attacks. Now they echoed with something else, the cries of fear from retreating predators. Ships once proud, once covered in trophies of galactic hunts, now limped through space, bleeding smoke. Goliath stood on the top of a broken ridge, his armor glowing faint red, his eyes locked on the stars above, behind him. Flames danced from the wreckage of a crashed Korathlander. Beside him, a young human scout whispered, "They're running." Goliath didn't smile, didn't move. He simply said, "Then we chase, all across Earth." The order was given, reverse the hunt, no more waiting, no more defense. No more hiding in bunkers and oceans. Now the beasts would move outward to the Korath colonies. Their forward bases, their shipyards, for every world the Korath burned. Earth would send a beast to bring judgment. The first strike came in Sector That-9, a moon-long used as a Korath hunting camp, where weaker alien species were thrown into forests for sport. But this time, when the Korath hunters stepped out into the trees, they heard something different, a low, slow breathing. In footsteps that circled them from all sides, Fang appeared first, his body wrapped in shadows. His claws wet with dew. He didn't speak, didn't roar. He simply moved, fast as thought, went tearing through 5 warriors in seconds. By the time the last hunter raised his weapon, Fang was already behind him. "You enjoy hunting the weak?" he whispered. "Now feel their fear." Then silence returned, and the moon was marked one beast, no survivors, in the oceans of planet Viren. Seraph swam through coral forests toward a massive Korath water base. The base floated proudly, guarded by sea mines and patrol ships. But none of that mattered. She moved like current, graceful and invisible. Inside the base, alarms began to flash, pressure dropping, oxygen systems failing. Korath technicians ran, confused and choking. Then Seraph appeared in the central chamber, rising from a column of water. Her voice echoed like song. "You poisoned our seas in your wars," she said. "Now drown in your own machines." With a wave of her arm, the entire structure collapsed inward, sucked down into a crushing spiral of water and ice. Her mission complete, she vanished, leaving only wreckage and stories behind. On the desert world of Relk, Ma arrived by drop. Pod alone, no backup? Korath guards laughed when they saw him, a single creature. One growled, "This is insult." But Ma cracked his knuckles and stepped forward. "You built this place on bones," he said, pointing to the skeletons buried beneath the sand. "Now I build a new floor with yours," and he charged, his fists shaking the ground like falling meteors. The entire outpost was gone in under 1 hour. Each beast struck different worlds, but all carried the same message. You are not hunters anymore. Korath transmissions across the galaxy became frantic. Bases called for help that never came. Commanders begged for weapons strong enough to kill the beasts, but none worked. Standard energy weapons were dodged. Gas and toxins failed against. Their modified bodies and psychological tactics were useless. The beasts felt no fear. Back on Earth. General Arya reviewed the galaxy's responses. Some species cheered, others hid, but all watched. "What are we becoming?" one advisor asked. Arya replied, "What we had to, not monsters, not heroes." Just the answer to cruelty in space. Echo moved like a whisper. He didn't strike from strength or power. He used sound, frequency, vibration. He entered. Korath listening posts played back the screams of fallen predators and let them echo through the halls. Then, when the guards panicked, he moved silent and precise. He left no bodies, only recordings of fear. Korath soldiers began abandoning posts, deserting fleets. Some even sent surrender signals to Earth, asking to be spared. But the beasts had no diplomacy, only justice. Then came the event that shook the galaxy. A Korath Dreadnought, the Tal'Zarak, was found drifting in space. Power gone, crew vanished. Earth denied involvement, but the claw marks on the hull told the truth. One beast had boarded it alone. Inside, only one message remained. Scratched into the command bridge walls in glowing red, "Your hunt ends here." And with that, the galaxy understood. Earth's silence had not been weakness. It had been focus. Earth's patience had not been fear. It had been preparation, and now Earth had unleashed something unstoppable. Not armies, not machines, but beasts made by pain, powered by memory. The Korath fled deeper into uncharted space, but they knew one thing with certainty. No matter where they went, no matter how far, the hunt was no longer theirs. It now belonged to Earth. The war was over. Not because a treaty had been signed, not because peace was agreed, but because the predators had nothing left. The Korath Empire, once feared across galaxies, was now scattered, broken, silent. Their ships no longer hunted. Their warriors no longer roared. Now they whispered, they hid, they ran. And all across the stars, one name was spoken with awe and terror. Earth, on the trade world of Yelvarin, a child asked his elder, "What is Earth?" The elder's eyes filled with memories, with stories passed in fear and respect. He whispered, "The world that gave birth to beasts. They were silent for generations," he said, "and when they arose, the stars trembled, galactic. News networks stopped calling it a war. They called it the Great Reversal, for the first time. The hunters became the hunted, and it was not through armies or bombs, but through beings who looked human, but fought like nightmares. In the floating libraries of the Archivarn race, records were rewritten. Earth, once labeled as primitive, low threat, now held its own archive wing, titled simply, "The Beasts of Earth, Unmasked." And the opening line read, "They were the storm after silence. On Earth, the beasts returned, one by one." Drop pods landed in hidden valleys, mountain caverns, ocean floors. Each beast stepped out of battle, not with pride, but with silence. They didn't want medals, didn't seek applause. Goliath returned to his original cryo chamber. He looked older, heavier, not in body, but in spirit. Before entering stasis, he said to General Arya, "We did what had to be done." She nodded and replied, "And now we let the stars decide who remembers." Seraph swam back into the black depths of the Arctic Sea. She didn't wait for orders, didn't speak a word. The ocean welcomed her home, the waves calming around her body like old friends. And she disappeared beneath the ice, her mission complete. Fang walked through a ruined predator fortress, now quiet and filled with wildflowers. He crouched and touched the grass growing where ash once covered the ground. A small alien child peeked out from the broken walls. Fang smiled gently, handed the child food, then vanished into the forest once more. Even Ma, the loudest of them all, found a quiet cave high in the mountains. There he sat, eyes watching the skies. He didn't need to punch anymore. He had nothing left to break. Only time to remember the faces of those he saved and those he ended. The beasts didn't. Rule didn't take planets. They returned to silence, just as Earth had trained them. Because their mission was never domination, it was balance. A message written in blood and sacrifice. Don't mistake kindness for weakness. Across the galaxy, enemies of Earth vanished, not because they were killed, but because they learned. Species that once mocked humans now sent gifts, messages of respect, and quiet thanks. And on every new world colonized, one rule became law. Do not awaken Earth, the Korath. Those who survived became wanderers, their fangs dulled, their ships stripped, their voices silent. Some tried to rebuild, others simply vanished into dark space, never to be heard from again. The Galactic Council, once arrogant and dismissive, now built a monument. It was placed in the center of the old neutral zone, where Earth had never been invited before. The statue was not of a beast, nor of a soldier. It was a cracked human helmet, standing in quiet power. Beneath it a plaque was written in every language. It said, "Here stands the reminder that silence is not surrender, that peace can carry claws, and that Earth in its patience." Remembered everything back on Earth. Life returned to normal. Children laughed in cities. Skies stayed clear, and oceans healed. Most people never even saw the war. They only heard rumors, saw flashes on the news, and whispered stories about beings called the beasts. But in secret, those stories were true. Deep under the ground, in stasis pods lined in silver and ice, the beasts slept again, their names unspoken, their faces forgotten by most, but always ready. If the stars ever cried for help again, General Arya stood one last time in the hollow core. She looked out over the map of the galaxy, now peaceful. Glowing and calm, she pressed a final command into the system. Deactivate Beast Protocol. And before the room went dark, she said softly, "Let them fear the silence again." And so the galaxy moved on, but it would never forget the world that said nothing for so long. Then answered with fury, because long after the war, in every corner of the stars, when fear rose again, aliens didn't ask for soldiers, or weapons, or fleets. They asked one question, whispered afraid of the answer, "Is Earth awake?"